He thought he was discarding a broken woman. He thought the ink on the divorce papers was his ticket to freedom and a new life with his mistress. Garrett Pembroke signed those papers on a live stage in front of New York's elite, believing he was the king of the world. But he didn't read the fine print. He didn't know that the woman standing silently beside him wasn't just his wife. She was the anonymous majority shareholder of his entire empire. In the next few minutes, you are going to witness the most brutal, calculated, and satisfying revenge in corporate history. This isn't just a divorce, it's a hostile takeover. The chandelier above the grand ballroom of the Pierre Hotel didn't sparkle, it glared. It was an aggressive display of wealth, much like the man standing at the podium. Garrett Pembroke, CEO of Pembroke Logistics, gripped the sides of the lectern with hands that had never known a day of manual labor. He looked out at the sea of faces, Manhattan's titans of industry, tech moguls, and old-money socialites, and felt nothing but contemptuous triumph. To his right, standing a few feet back in the shadows, was Camilla. Camilla Pembroke wore a dress of midnight blue velvet, high-necked and long-sleeved. In a room full of sequins and exposed skin, she looked like a Victorian governess who had wandered into a disco. She stood with her hands clasped in front of her face a mask of practiced neutrality. For 10 years, she had been the silent accessory to Garrett's loud ambition. She was the woman who organized the galas, remembered the birthdays of board members' wives, and quietly endured the humiliations Garrett dished out like party favors. "Ladies and gentlemen," Garrett's voice boomed, amplified by the state-of-the-art sound system. "Tonight is a celebration of the future. Pembroke Logistics has just secured the government contract for the Eastern Seaboard Distribution Network. We are untouchable." Applause rippled through the room. It was polite but guarded. Everyone knew the rumors. They knew about Vanessa. Vanessa Leclerc was sitting at the front table, wearing a dress that cost more than most people's mortgages and covered significantly less ground. She caught Garrett's eye and winked. She was the marketing director at Pembroke, a title she had earned primarily through late-night strategy sessions in Garrett's penthouse suite. Garrett smiled at her, a wolfish grin that made his handsome face look predatory. He turned back to the microphone. "But to move into the future, one must shed the weight of the past." The room went quiet. The air conditioning hummed, sounding like a holding breath. "My wife, Camilla, and I have come to a crossroads," Garrett said, his tone dripping with mock sorrow. He reached into the inner pocket of his tuxedo jacket and pulled out a thick, folded document. "I believe in transparency. I believe in living one's truth. And my truth is that I have outgrown this marriage." A gasp fluttered through the crowd. This was unprecedented. Divorces in this circle were handled by armies of lawyers in soundproof rooms, not announced during the appetizers. Garrett turned to Camilla, extending the papers. "I've already signed them, Camilla. The settlement is generous, far more than you deserve, considering your lack of contribution to the company's success over the last decade. Sign it. Here. Now, let's not drag this out." He pulled a gold fountain pen from his pocket, a gift from Camilla on their 5th anniversary, and held it out to her. The humiliation was absolute. He was discarding her like a used napkin in front of the very people she had spent years charming for his benefit. Vanessa was smirking openly now, sipping her champagne. Camilla stepped forward. The heels of her shoes made no sound on the plush carpet. She looked at the papers. It was the standard Pembroke prenup modification he had been bullying her to sign for months, stripping her of alimony in exchange for a lump sum that wouldn't cover rent in their neighborhood for a year. She looked up at Garrett. His blue eyes were cold, devoid of the man she had married when they were both struggling students at Columbia. "Are you sure, Garrett?" Camilla asked. Her voice was soft, but the microphone caught it. It was steady, unwavering. "Sign the damn papers, Camilla," he hissed, leaning in so only she and the first 3 rows could hear. "Don't make a scene. You're embarrassing yourself." Camilla took the pen. She didn't look at the crowd. She didn't look at Vanessa. She looked down at the signature line. Contribution, she thought. He talks about contribution. She remembered the nights she stayed up analyzing spreadsheets because Garrett was too drunk to focus. She remembered the anonymous bridge loans she had secured from her own inheritance, money she never told him she had, to save the company from bankruptcy in 2018. She remembered the shell companies she had built to buy up Pembroke debt so the banks wouldn't foreclose. She uncapped the pen. "As you wish," she said. She signed her name, Camilla Pembroke. Then she did something strange. She reached into her clutch, pulled out a small circular notary stamp and pressed it firmly onto the paper next to her signature. Garrett frowned. "What is that?" "Authentication," Camilla said, her voice suddenly projecting to the back of the room without the need for a shout. She handed the papers back to him. "You wanted a divorce, Garrett. You have it. Effective immediately." Garrett snatched the papers, waving them in the air like a trophy. "Free," he laughed, turning to the crowd. "Let this be a lesson. Never let dead weight anchor you down." He gestured for Vanessa to join him on stage. The mistress rose, triumphant, the red silk of her dress flowing like blood water. She ascended the stairs and wrapped her arm around Garrett's waist. Camilla didn't leave the stage. She took a step back, folding her hands again. She watched them with the clinical detachment of a scientist observing rats in a maze. "Why are you still here?" Vanessa whispered, leaning past Garrett. "Go pack your bags, honey. The driver is waiting to take you to, well, wherever failed wives go." Camilla smiled. It was the first time she had smiled all night. It didn't reach her eyes. "I'm waiting for the board meeting," Camilla said. Garrett laughed, a barking sound. "The board meeting is next month, Camilla. And you're not on the board. You're nothing." Actually, a deep voice rumbled from the side of the stage. Armand Lewis stepped into the light. He was 70 years old, the senior partner of Lewis, Finch & Associates, and the most feared corporate litigator in New York. He was also Garrett's father's oldest friend. "Armand?" Garrett looked confused. "What are you doing here? You're supposed to be in London." "I came for the transition," Armand said, adjusting his spectacles. He walked over to Camilla and stood beside her, slightly behind her shoulder, the position of a guard dog. "What transition?" Garrett demanded. "I just signed the government contract. I am the CEO. There is no transition." Armand opened his briefcase and pulled out a single sheet of paper. "Garrett, do you recall the terms of the Pembroke Family Trust? The one your father, Theodore, set up before he passed?" "Of course," Garrett scoffed. "It holds the controlling interest, 51% of the company stock. I am the beneficiary." "You were the conditional beneficiary," Armand corrected. "The trust had a specific clause regarding the sanctity of marriage. Theodore was a man of old-fashioned values. He stipulated that the voting rights of the 51% stake would remain with you solely as long as you remained married to Camilla." The room was so silent you could hear the ice melting in the buckets. "What?" Garrett's face went pale. That's archaic. That's not legal." "It is ironclad," Armand said. "And there is a secondary clause, Clause 14b, in the event of a divorce initiated by you, or a divorce signed under duress, or, and this is my favorite part, in the event of proven infidelity." Armand glanced at Vanessa, then back to Garrett. "The ownership of the trust does not revert to the board. It transfers in full to the injured party." Garrett froze. He looked at the papers in his hand. The divorce papers he had just forced her to sign. The papers that proved the marriage was over. "You signed the divorce," Armand said calmly. "And in doing so, you triggered the transfer. As of 3 minutes ago, when Camilla applied her signature, she became the sole owner of the Pembroke Family Trust." Armand turned to Camilla and bowed his head slightly. "Madam Chairwoman, you control 51% of Pembroke Logistics. Do you have any motions for the floor?" Camilla stepped up to the microphone. Garrett was paralyzed, his mouth opening and closing like a landed fish. Vanessa dropped her hand from his waist as if he were suddenly radioactive. Camilla leaned into the mic. Her voice was cool, crisp, and terrifying. "Yes," she said, "I have one motion. I move to terminate the current CEO for gross misconduct and incompetence, effective immediately." The silence that followed Camilla's declaration at the Pierre Hotel didn't last long. It was broken by the frenzy of flashbulbs. The society photographers, who usually politely snapped photos of dresses and centerpieces, smelled blood. They crowded the foot of the stage, capturing the precise moment Garrett Pembroke's life shattered. Garrett didn't scream. He didn't fight. He simply collapsed inward. His ego, which had been the structural support of his entire personality, had been vaporized. He looked at Armand Lewis, his father's friend, pleading with his eyes for this to be a cruel joke. "Security," Camilla said. She didn't shout, but the head of the hotel security detail, a man named Henderson, who had known Camilla for years and despised the way Garrett treated her, was already moving. "Please escort Mr. Pembroke and Ms. Leclerc off the premises," Camilla instructed. "This is a company event. They are no longer employees of Pembroke Logistics." "You can't do this," Vanessa shrieked. The veneer of the sophisticated socialite cracked, revealing the desperation underneath. "I'm the marketing director. I have a contract." "Your contract," Camilla said, turning to look at Vanessa for the first time, "has a morality clause. I suggest you read it. Sleeping with the CEO while he is married constitutes a breach of ethics detrimental to the company image. You're fired for cause, Vanessa. No severance." Henderson and two large guards stepped onto the stage. Garrett tried to pull his arm away. "Get your hands off me. I own this city." "You own a tuxedo and a lease on a Porsche," Camilla corrected him. "And actually, since the Porsche is a company vehicle, Henderson, please take the keys." The walk of shame was documented in high definition. Garrett Pembroke and Vanessa Leclerc were marched through the ballroom, past the heavyweights of industry who parted like the Red Sea, averting their gaze. No one shook Garrett's hand. No one offered help. In the world of high finance, power is the only currency, and Garrett was suddenly bankrupt. When the doors closed behind them, Camilla let out a long, slow breath. Her knees trembled just once. "Steady," Armand whispered, offering her his arm. "The hard part is done. Now comes the war." "I'm ready, Armand," she said. "Take me to the office." It was 2 a.m. when they arrived at the Pembroke Logistics headquarters in Midtown. The skyscraper was mostly dark, a monolith of steel and glass piercing the night sky. Camilla swiped her card. It was her old card, the one labeled Spouse Visitor. It flashed red. Access denied. She looked at Armand. Armand smiled and tapped his phone. A moment later, the turnstile chimed. Green light. They took the private elevator to the 40th floor. The executive suite. The office still smelled like Garrett, expensive cologne and stale scotch. Camilla walked to the massive mahogany desk. She didn't sit in the chair, not yet. She walked to the window and looked out at the city. "He drained the operating accounts, didn't he?" Camilla asked, watching the traffic below. Armand sighed, placing a briefcase on the conference table. "Worse, I've been reviewing the books since the transfer triggered. Garrett wasn't just incompetent, he was reckless. He leveraged the company's assets to buy into a crypto mining venture in Malta 3 months ago. It crashed. The company is bleeding cash, the government contract he bragged about tonight. It's contingent on a solvency audit due on Monday." "Monday," Camilla repeated. "That gives us 48 hours. If we don't pass that audit," Armand warned, "the contract is void, the stock tanks, and the creditors come for the building. Garrett didn't just lose the company, he handed you a sinking ship." Camilla turned from the window. Her eyes were hard. "He didn't know about Athena," she said. Armand paused. "The venture capital firm, the one that's been quietly buying up logistics hubs in the Midwest." "That's me," Camilla said. Armand's jaw dropped slightly. It was a rare sight. "You? How? With what capital?" "My grandmother left me a small trust," Camilla explained, walking over to the wet bar and pouring 2 glasses of water. "Garrett thought I spent it on shoes and charity lunches. I didn't. I invested it in tech startups in 2012. I turned 2 million into 50. Then I formed Athena Holdings to hedge against Garrett's stupidity. I knew this day would come." She handed a glass to Armand. "I have the liquidity to plug the hole in Pembroke's finances," she said, "but I can't do it as Camilla Pembroke, the scorned wife. The market will see it as desperation. It needs to look like an outside acquisition, a strategic partnership." "So Athena saves Pembroke," Armand mused, a smile returning to his face. "Brilliant. But Garrett will fight back. He has friends, dirty ones, specifically Julian Thorne." Camilla stiffened at the name. Julian Thorne was a corporate raider, a man who made Garrett look like a choir boy. He was also the man Garrett had been secretly meeting with to sell off parts of the company for quick cash. a plan Camilla had suspected but couldn't prove. Thorne is the one who funded the Malta deal, Camilla realized. Garrett owes him money. A lot of money, Armand nodded. And now that Garrett doesn't have the company assets to pay him back, Thorne is going to come looking for collateral. Or he's going to try to challenge the validity of the trust transfer. Camilla sat in the CEO's chair. It was too big for her, but she adjusted the height. "Let him come," she said, "but first we need to clean house. I want a forensic audit of every expense account. I want to know every dime Garrett spent on Vanessa. Every flight, every hotel, every piece of jewelry bought with company funds." "For the divorce settlement?" Armand asked. "No," Camilla said coldly. "For the criminal charges. I'm not just taking his company, Armand. I'm sending him to prison." Saturday morning, the hangover Garrett woke up on the sofa of Vanessa's apartment. His head felt like it had been split open with an axe. The events of the previous night crashed into his memory like a pile-up on the freeway. He sat up, gasping. It can't be real. He reached for his phone. 400 missed calls, 2,000 text messages. He opened his banking app. "Account frozen. Please contact your branch." He opened his brokerage app. Access revoked. Damn it. He threw the phone across the room. It shattered against the wall. Vanessa walked out of the bedroom. She wasn't wearing makeup. She looked tired and angry. "You broke my wall," she said, her voice flat. "I'll buy you a new apartment," Garrett shouted, standing up. He was still in his tuxedo shirt, stained with sweat. "I'll fix this. It's a mistake. My father's trust. There must be a loophole. Armand is senile. I'll hire the best team in the city." "With what money, Garrett?" Vanessa asked, crossing her arms. "I checked the news. The stock is halted. The board has already issued a press release supporting the leadership transition." "You're radioactive." "I am Garrett Pembroke," he roared. "I am that company." "You're a liability," Vanessa said, "and I have to look out for myself." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying get out," she said. Garrett stared at her. "I left my wife for you. I signed away my life for you." "No, Garrett," Vanessa sneered. "You did it for yourself, because you wanted a younger model. Don't pretend this was about love. It was about ego. And now that you don't have the power, you're just a middle-aged man with a drinking problem." She walked to the door and opened it. "Get out, before I call the police." Garrett stumbled out into the hallway, shoeless, his wallet empty. He had fallen from the peak of Olympus to the gutter in less than 12 hours. But as he stood on the sidewalk, shivering in the cool morning air, a black SUV pulled up to the curb. The window rolled down. Inside sat a man with slicked-back grey hair and eyes like shark glass. It was Julian Thorne. "Get in, Garrett," Thorne said smoothly. "We have a problem, and you are going to help me fix it." Garrett hesitated, then opened the door. He had no other choice. The devil was the only one offering a ride. The black SUV smelled of expensive leather and peppermint. Garrett Pembroke sat in the passenger seat, his hands trembling slightly as he buckled the seatbelt. He didn't look at the driver. He didn't have to. The man behind the wheel was Sebastian Cross. Sebastian was a ghost in the financial world. He didn't attend galas. He didn't give interviews. He bought distressed companies, stripped them of their assets, and sold the scraps for parts. He was the vulture that circled when the lion was wounded. And right now, Pembroke Logistics was bleeding out. "You look terrible, Garrett," Sebastian said, his voice smooth and detached, like a doctor delivering a terminal diagnosis. He merged onto the FDR drive, heading away from the city center. "She tricked me," Garrett stammered, staring out the window at the blurred lights of the East River. "Camilla, she had the notary stamp in her purse. Who carries a notary stamp to a black tie gala?" "A woman who knows her husband is a fool," Sebastian replied. "We have a problem, Garrett, a $40 million problem. That's the amount I lent you for the Malta expansion, the expansion that doesn't exist." Garrett winced. "I can fix it. I just need time. Once I get the company back." "You aren't getting the company back," Sebastian cut him off. "Not legally. Armand Lewis is the best trust lawyer in the state. If he says the transfer is valid, it's valid. The Pembroke Trust is gone." "Then what do we do?" Garrett asked, panic rising in his chest. "If I can't pay you—" Sebastian smiled, but it didn't reach his shark-like eyes. We don't need to win in court, Garrett. We just need to destroy the prize so she chokes on it. Pembroke Logistics has a solvency audit on Monday for the government contract, correct? Yes, 9 Adasad AM. If the company fails that audit, Sebastian explained, tapping the steering wheel, the stock price will collapse. The creditors will call in their loans. The company will be forced into immediate liquidation to pay off debts. And who will be there to buy the infrastructure for pennies on the dollar? You, Garrett realized. And you, Sebastian corrected. If you help me tank the audit, I'll wipe your debt clean. I'll even give you a position in the new holding company. You can be the face of the phoenix that rises from the ashes. Garrett felt a surge of hope. It was a dark, twisted hope, but it was all he had. What do I have to do? You still have your administrator override codes for the server, don't you? Sebastian asked. Camilla revoked my access, Garrett said. She revoked your user access, Sebastian said. But the mainframe has a physical backdoor, a hardline connection in the server room. You installed it 3 years ago when you were paranoid about Russian hackers. Remember? Garrett nodded slowly. He had forgotten about that. A direct line that bypassed the firewalls, intended for emergency shutdowns. Get into the building, Sebastian commanded. Plant a logic bomb in the inventory database. Make the assets disappear from the digital record right before the auditors log in. If the books show 0 inventory, they fail the audit. The company dies. Camilla fails. Garrett looked at his reflection in the side mirror. He looked ragged, broken. But the thought of Camilla, calm, superior, victorious Camilla, sitting in his chair, made his blood boil. She had humiliated him. She deserved this. I'll do it, Garrett said. Sunday, 11 a.m. The War Room. The executive suite of Pembroke Logistics had been transformed. The sleek, minimalist decor was now buried under mountains of paper. Pizza boxes were stacked in the corner. The air was thick with the smell of coffee and tension. Camilla hadn't slept in 30 hours. She sat at the head of the conference table, her hair pulled back in a severe bun, wearing a pair of reading glasses she usually hid from Garrett. Opposite her sat David Cohen, a forensic accountant Camilla had hired through a shell company years ago to monitor her own small investments. He was young, brilliant, and currently looked like he had seen a ghost. It's worse than we thought, David said, sliding a tablet across the mahogany table. Garrett didn't just make bad investments. He was siphoning cash directly. Camilla looked at the screen. It was a digital map of transactions. He set up a vendor called Orion Consulting. David explained, Pembroke Logistics has been paying Orion $50,000 a month for advisory services for 5 years. The payments escalated to $200,000 a month this year. Where does the money go? Camilla asked, her finger tracing the red line on the screen. Cayman Islands, David said. Then it bounces to a shell in Panama. Then it disappears. But here's the kicker. The invoices from Orion. They were approved by Vanessa Leclerc. Camilla let out a dry, humorless laugh. Of course, he was paying his mistress with company funds and calling it consulting. That's tax fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. There's more, Armand Lewis said, entering the room with a fresh pot of coffee. He looked remarkably fresh for a man of 70 who had pulled an all-nighter. I just got off the phone with the bank, the $40 million loan Garrett took out for the Malta deal. It wasn't from a bank, it was a private promissory note. From whom? Camilla asked. A holding company called Apex Ventures, Armand said. It's a front for Sebastian Cross. Camilla went cold. She knew the reputation of Sebastian Cross. He was a corporate executioner. Cross isn't a lender, Camilla said, standing up and pacing the room. He's a liquidator. He lends money to companies he knows can't pay it back, so he can foreclose on their assets. Garrett didn't just borrow money. He sold the company's soul. If we don't pay that $40 million back by Tuesday, Armand warned, Cross can legally seize the fleet, the trucks, the warehouses, the planes, everything. We have the capital in Athena Holdings, Camilla said. I can wire the $40 million today. You can, David interjected, but if you inject that money as a personal loan, Cross will sue, claiming you're mingling assets to defraud prior creditors. It needs to be clean. It needs to be revenue. Camilla stopped pacing. She looked out the window at the skyline. The city looked peaceful from up here, but she knew down on the street the wolves were circling. "Revenue," she whispered. Then she turned to Armand. "Get me the file on the Project Mercury prototype." Armand frowned. "The drone delivery system. Garrett shut that down 2 years ago, said it was too expensive." "Garrett shut it down because he lacks vision," Camilla said. "But I kept funding the research team privately, through Athena. The patent isn't held by Pembroke, it's held by me." She walked back to the table and slammed her hand down on the wood. "We're going to buy the patent," Camilla declared. "Pembroke Logistics will buy the Mercury drone patent from Athena Holdings for $50 million. It's a legitimate asset acquisition. It puts $50 million into the company's books as an asset, and I will immediately reinvest the cash as an equity purchase to pay off Cross." David's eyes widened. That could work. It balances the ledger, it kills the debt, and it gives us a new tech asset to show the auditors. "But we have to do it before the audit starts tomorrow at 9 a.m., Camilla said. "Draft the contracts, Armand. David, prep the wire transfers." "What about Garrett?" Armand asked. "He's quiet. Too quiet." "Garrett is a creature of habit," Camilla said. "He's probably crying in a bar somewhere." She was wrong. Garrett was currently in the service elevator of the building, wearing a janitor's uniform he had stolen from a laundry cart, heading for the server room. The Pembroke Logistics server room was located in the sub-basement, 3 floors below the lobby. It was a fortress of cooling fans and blinking lights, housed behind a biometric steel door. Garrett Pembroke stood in the hallway, sweating profusely under the grey jumpsuit. He pulled his old keycard from his pocket. He knew Camilla would have deactivated it for the main elevators and the executive suite. But the sub-basement? Garrett bet she had overlooked it. He was the one who authorized the security protocols for this level, and he had specifically exempted the maintenance access from the central update system to avoid glitches. He swiped the card. Beep. The light turned green. Garrett exhaled, a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "Sloppy, Camilla. Sloppy." He pushed the door open. The roar of the servers hit him, a wall of white noise. He moved quickly to the main console. He didn't need to log in to the operating system. That would trigger an alert upstairs. He needed the physical patch panel. He found the port, labeled Emergency Diag 4. He pulled a small black USB drive from his pocket, given to him by Sebastian Cross, and plugged it in. The screen on the console flickered. A command prompt opened. Green text began to scroll rapidly. Executing, inventory, wipe.exe bypass, active target. Root database assets. "Goodbye, Camilla," Garrett whispered. On the screen, a progress bar appeared. 0%, 10%. Suddenly, the red emergency lights in the room flashed. The air pressure changed as the heavy fire suppression doors slammed shut, sealing the room. Access violation detected. Lockdown initiated. Garrett froze. He tried to pull the USB drive out, but the computer had engaged a physical lock on the port. A voice came over the intercom. It wasn't a computerized voice, it was Camilla. "Hello, Garrett." Garrett looked up at the security camera in the corner. "Camilla, open this door." "I really hoped you wouldn't do this." Camilla's voice echoed in the small room. She sounded disappointed, not angry. "I hoped that somewhere deep down you cared about this company, about the 3,000 people who work here, but you were willing to burn it all down just to hurt me." "You stole my life," Garrett screamed at the camera. "You tricked me." "I saved the company from you," Camilla corrected. "And regarding your little logic bomb, did you really think I didn't audit the physical security?" On the screen, the progress bar stopped at 99%. Then the text changed. Threat isolated, payload reversed. Sending source data to FBI Cyber Crime Dive. Garrett's face drained of color. "What? What did you do?" "I didn't block the port, Garrett," Camilla explained. "I set a honeypot. As soon as you plugged that drive in, you didn't upload a virus. You downloaded a tracking beacon, and you just gave me the digital fingerprint of whoever wrote that code. Let me guess. Sebastian Cross?" Garrett slumped against the server rack. He was trapped. "The police are on their way, Garrett," Camilla said. "Corporate sabotage is a felony. Breaking and entering is a felony. Attempted destruction of data, well, You're looking at 10 to 15 years. Camilla, please, Garrett begged, sliding down to the floor. I'll do anything. Don't let them take me. I'm your husband. Ex-husband, Camilla said. The papers were filed this morning. The intercom clicked off. Garrett sat alone in the flashing red light, listening to the hum of the machines he used to own, waiting for the sirens. Monday, 8:55 a.m., the audit. The conference room was silent. The three auditors from the Government Oversight Committee sat in a row, looking like undertakers. They had their laptops open, ready to dissect Pembroke Logistics. Camilla sat at the head of the table. Armand was on her right. David was on her left. Ms. Pembroke, the lead auditor, a stern woman named Ms. Halloway, began. We have reviewed the preliminary financials submitted by your predecessor. Frankly, they are concerning. There are significant gaps in liquidity. We are aware of the discrepancies left by the former administration, Camilla said smoothly. However, those gaps have been filled. She nodded to David. He projected the new balance sheet onto the screen. As of 8:01 a.m. this morning, Camilla said, Pembroke Logistics has acquired the exclusive patent rights to the Mercury autonomous drone delivery system. Furthermore, a capital injection of $50 million has been cleared to settle all outstanding high-interest debt. Ms. Halloway adjusted her glasses. She looked at the screen, then at her laptop. She typed furiously for a moment. The debt to Apex Ventures, she asked. Paid in full, Armand said, sliding a wire transfer receipt across the table, with a prepayment penalty included, just to be polite. Ms. Halloway looked at the receipt. She looked at the patent valuation. She looked at Camilla. For a long moment, nobody breathed. This changes the complexion of the portfolio significantly, Ms. Halloway admitted. The Mercury patent alone secures your government contract for the next 10 years. The Department of Defense has been looking for a domestic drone provider. She closed her laptop. A rare smile touched her lips. We will need to verify the bank confirmation, but barring any irregularities, Pembroke Logistics passes the solvency audit with the highest rating in your sector. Armand let out a breath he seemed to have been holding since Friday. David grinned. Camilla didn't smile. She just nodded. Thank you, Ms. Halloway. We look forward to serving the contract. As the auditors packed up their bags, Camilla's phone buzzed. It was a text message from Henderson, the head of security. Subject in custody. NYPD has him. Cross is implicated. Camilla set the phone down face down. It's over, Armand said softly. No, Camilla said, standing up and smoothing her skirt. The defense is over. Now we go on the offense. News of Garrett's arrest hit the news cycle like a meteor. CEO arrested for sabotage. Pembroke ARS saves company. The $50 million divorce. By Tuesday morning, Camilla wasn't just a business owner, she was an icon. The scorned wife narrative had been flipped on its head. She was the Iron Lady of logistics, but Camilla wasn't interested in the press. She was interested in the board meeting. The board of directors of Pembroke Logistics had been silent during the weekend crisis, watching to see who would win. Now they were all present in the boardroom, looking sheepish. These were the men who had laughed at Garrett's jokes, who had ignored Camilla at parties, who had enabled Garrett's reckless behavior because the stock price was high. Camilla walked in. She didn't take the seat at the head of the table. She stood at the front of the room. Gentlemen, she began, you have all received the report on the weekend's events. The company is safe. The contract is secured. The stock is up 15% in pre-market trading. A murmur of assent went around the table. Excellent work, Camilla, one board member, a man named Billings, said. Truly remarkable. We are fully behind you. Are you? Camilla asked, her voice icy. She pressed a button on the remote. The screen behind her changed. It showed a list of names and dates. These are the dates of the board meetings where Garrett proposed the Malta expansion, Camilla said. And these are the minutes where you approved it without a due diligence report. Why? Silence. I'll tell you why, Camilla said. Because Garrett promised you all bonuses tied to the short-term stock bump. You risked the solvency of this company for your quarterly payouts. Now see here, Camilla, Billings blustered. That's business. That's negligence, Camilla snapped. And as the majority shareholder controlling 51% of the voting stock, I am restructuring the board. She threw a stack of folders onto the table. I am accepting the resignations of everyone at this table, effective immediately. You can't do that, another member shouted. We have tenure. Read the bylaws, Armand Lewis said from the corner, Section 8, Paragraph C. In the event of a takeover triggered by the trust clause, the trustee has the right to dissolve the board without cause. Camilla looked at them. You have 5 minutes to clear your personal effects. Security will escort you out. As the board members sputtered and raged, storming out of the room one by one, Camilla finally sat down in the chairman's seat. She was alone in the room. The silence was absolute. She looked at the empty chairs. She had won. She had the company. She had the money. She had destroyed her enemies. But as she looked at the empty seat where Garrett used to sit, she felt a pang of something unexpected. It wasn't regret. It was exhaustion. She pulled her phone out. She had one unread voicemail. It was from a number she didn't recognize. She pressed play. Hello, Mrs. Pembroke. The voice was smooth, cultured, and terrifying. It was Sebastian Cross. Congratulations on your victory. Truly, you played the game better than I anticipated. Camilla's grip on the phone tightened. Garrett was a pawn, Cross continued, sacrificial. I don't mind losing a pawn, but you took my $40 million, and you humiliated me. You may have won the battle, Camilla, but you have just started a war. I'll be seeing you. The line went dead. Camilla stared at the phone. She knew Sebastian Cross wasn't done. He was a man with infinite resources and zero morals. He would come for her again. Not with a lawsuit, but with something darker. She stood up and walked to the window. The city was below her, vast and dangerous. Bring it on, she whispered. The holding cell at the 19th precinct was a stark contrast to the penthouse Garrett Pembroke had woken up in just 48 hours ago. The walls were painted a peeling institutional grey, and the air smelled of stale sweat and despair. Garrett sat on the metal bench, his elbows on his knees, head in his hands. He had been processed, fingerprinted, and stripped of his belt and shoelaces. The humiliation was total. Every time the heavy steel door clanged open, he flinched, expecting news of his bail. But bail hadn't come. Pembroke, a guard barked. Lawyer. Garrett scrambled up. Finally, is it Armand? Is it my father's firm? The guard didn't answer. He just jerked his thumb toward the interrogation room. Garrett walked in, expecting to see a high-priced defense attorney. Instead, he saw a woman he didn't recognize. She was sharp-featured, wearing a charcoal suit that looked expensive but severe. She had a briefcase open on the table. Who are you? Garrett asked, sitting down. Where is Armand Lewis? Armand represents the company, Mr. Pembroke, the woman said. Her voice was dry, like shifting sand. You are being charged with crimes against the company. Armand is currently drafting the restraining order to keep you 500 feet away from the headquarters. I am Patricia Holmes. I've been appointed by the court. A public defender, Garrett gasped. I am Garrett Pembroke. I have millions in assets. You have frozen assets, Patricia corrected him, shuffling papers. And you have a very serious problem. The district attorney is looking to make an example of you. Corporate espionage, cyber-terrorism, attempted destruction of evidence. They are talking about 20 years, Garrett. Garrett felt the room spin. 20 years? I didn't do it. I mean, I did it, but I was coerced. It was Sebastian Cross. He made me. Patricia looked up. Her eyes narrowed. Sebastian Cross, you have proof. He gave me the drive, Garrett cried. He drove me there. Check the cameras outside his building. Check my phone records. Your phone was destroyed, Patricia reminded him, and Mr. Cross has an airtight alibi. He was at a charity brunch for the tedious duration of Sunday morning. We have affidavits. Garrett slumped back. Sebastian had played him perfectly. He was the fall guy, the useful idiot. However, Patricia said, leaning forward, the DA might be willing to discuss a plea deal if you can provide something tangible. Not about Cross, he's too slippery, but about the network. What network? The network that helped you siphon money to the Cayman Islands, Patricia said. You didn't set up those shell companies yourself, Garrett. You aren't smart enough. Who did? Garrett hesitated. He knew the name. It was a name that terrified him even more than prison. If I talk, Garrett whispered, they will kill me. Patricia closed her folder. And if you don't talk, you will die in prison as an old man who used to be someone. Your choice. Wednesday, 10:00 a.m. The Pembroke Tower. Camilla stood in the center of the R&D lab, watching the prototype of the Mercury drone hover silently above a pallet of medical supplies. It was a beautiful machine, sleek, carbon fiber black, with 6 rotors that hummed with a low, reassuring pitch. Stability is at 99%, the lead engineer, a brilliant young woman named Sarah Mitchell, reported. Wind resistance is holding. We can run the demo for the investors on Friday. Good, Camilla said. This demo is everything. If the military sees this work, the contract is locked. If it fails, it won't fail, Sarah promised. We've stress-tested the guidance chips 3 times. Camilla nodded, but the knot in her stomach wouldn't loosen. Sebastian Cross's threat was still ringing in her ears. I don't mind losing a pawn. Armand, Camilla called out. The older man was standing by the door, reviewing a contract on his tablet. Yes, Camilla? I want triple security on this floor, she ordered. No one in or out without biometric clearance, and scan the drones, physically. I don't want any software glitches. Already done, Armand said. But Camilla, you need to rest. You haven't slept in 3 days. You're running on adrenaline and caffeine. I'll sleep when Cross is in handcuffs, she replied. Just then, her phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. Ms. Pembroke, a gruff voice said. This is Detective Miller, NYPD. We have a situation with your ex-husband. Did he make bail? Camilla asked, her hand tightening on the phone. No, Miller said. He was attacked in the holding cell roughly an hour ago. Camilla gasped. Is he? He's alive. In the ICU. Stabbing. Someone got to him before he could testify. Camilla went cold. This wasn't corporate maneuvering anymore. This was a hit. Who did it? We don't know yet, Miller said. But he whispered something to the paramedic. He said, tell Camilla to check the invoices from 2019. Look for Project Chimera. Chimera? Camilla repeated. I've never heard of it. He went under before he could say more. We'll keep a guard on his room. Watch your back, Ms. Pembroke. Camilla hung up. She looked at Armand. We need to go to the archives, she said, now. The archives of Pembroke Logistics were stored in a secure facility in New Jersey, a massive warehouse filled with boxes of paper records that hadn't been digitized. It was dusty, cold, and silent. Camilla and Armand sat at a long metal table under a flickering fluorescent light. They had been searching for 4 hours. 2019, Camilla muttered, flipping through a stack of purchase orders. It was the year Garrett took over as CEO after his father died, the year everything started to go wrong. Here, Armand said, pulling a file from a box marked Miscellaneous Vendor Agreements. I found a reference to a Chimera initiative. But it's not an invoice, it's a non-disclosure agreement. Camilla took the file. It was thin. Inside was a single NDA signed by Garrett Pembroke and a representative from a company called Obsidian Dynamics. Obsidian Dynamics, Camilla read. I know that name. They are a private military contractor, mercenaries. Why was a logistics company doing business with mercenaries? Keep reading, Armand urged. Camilla turned the page to the appendix. It was a manifest. Item, long-range acoustic hailing devices. Item, high-frequency signal jammers. Item, sub-audible frequency generators. Jammers, Camilla frowned. Why would we need signal jammers? She looked at the date on the manifest. October 14th, 2019. Armand, Camilla said slowly. Do you remember the crash of Flight 404? Armand's face paled. The Pembroke cargo plane that went down over the Atlantic? The one carrying the prototype semiconductors? Yes, Camilla said. It went down on October 15th, 2019, the day after this equipment was delivered. The official report said it was a catastrophic navigational failure. The pilots lost contact with the tower. My God, Armand whispered. You don't think... Garrett didn't just embezzle money, Camilla realized, horror dawning on her. He helped someone crash our own plane. To steal the cargo. She stood up, pacing the narrow aisle between the shelves. The semiconductors were insured for $200 million. The insurance paid out. Pembroke stock took a hit. but the cash infusion saved Garrett's quarterly earnings. But the cargo, Armand asked. It was lost at sea. Was it? Camilla asked. Or was the plane jammed, forced to land somewhere else, offloaded, and then crashed empty? She looked at the signature on the NDA for Obsidian Dynamics. It was illegible, a scrawl of black ink. But the witness signature was clear. Sebastian Cross. He was the broker, Camilla said. Cross orchestrated the theft. Garrett provided the cover. And they killed the pilots to cover their tracks. This was why Cross was so desperate to destroy her. It wasn't about the money she owed him. It was about the evidence buried in these boxes. If she dug deep enough, she wouldn't just bankrupt him, she would put him on death row for murder. We need to get this to the FBI, Armand said, reaching for the file. No, Camilla said, stopping him. If we go to the FBI now, Cross will know we found it. He has eyes everywhere. Look what happened to Garrett in a police station. We need to catch him in the act. We need him to confess. How? Armand asked. He's a ghost. He's arrogant, Camilla said, and he thinks I'm just a socialite with a lucky prenup. We're going to use the drone demo on Friday. We're going to set a trap. Thursday, 8 p.m. The setup. The plan was dangerous. It relied on Camilla making herself a target. She leaked a rumor to the press that she was planning to announce a discovery regarding the 2019 crash during the live broadcast of the drone demonstration. She knew Cross would be watching. She knew he couldn't risk that information getting out. She sat in her office, the lights dimmed. She had sent the security team home, keeping only Henderson, her most trusted guard. He's here, Henderson radioed from the lobby. He didn't come through the front. He bypassed the sensors on the roof. Let him in, Camilla said, her voice steady. She turned her chair to face the door. A moment later, the lock clicked. The door swung open. Sebastian Cross stood there. He wasn't wearing his usual suit. He was dressed in black tactical gear, holding a suppressed pistol. You really are persistent, Camilla, Cross said, closing the door behind him. Most people would have taken the win and retired to the Hamptons. I don't like unfinished business, Sebastian, Camilla said. She didn't look at the gun. She looked him in the eye. I know about Flight 404. I know about the jammers. Smart girl, Cross smiled. Garrett was right about one thing. You were always the brains of the operation. It's a shame. You would have made an excellent partner. Did you kill the pilots? Camilla asked. They were contractors, Cross shrugged. Collateral damage. The semiconductors were worth more than their pensions. And Garrett? Well, Garrett was greedy. He needed the insurance money to pay off his gambling debts. I just provided the logistics. He raised the gun. And now I'm going to provide the closure. A tragic suicide. The stress of the takeover was too much for the poor heiress. She jumped from her office window. You won't get away with it, Camilla said. I always do, Cross said. I own the judges. I own the cops. I own this city. He took a step forward. Do you own the internet? Camilla asked. Cross paused. What? Camilla pointed to the small potted plant on her desk. A tiny red light was blinking among the leaves. We're live, Sebastian, Camilla said, streaming to YouTube, Facebook, and the servers of the Department of Defense. 3 million people just heard you confess to the murder of Flight 404's crew. Cross's eyes widened. He looked at the plant, then back at Camilla. For the first time, the mask of cool detachment slipped. He looked like a cornered animal. You witch, he hissed. He lunged for her. The office door exploded inward. Henderson and a SWAT team poured into the room. Drop it. Federal agents. Cross froze. He looked at the window, calculating the jump. It was 40 floors. He looked at the gun. He looked at the SWAT team. Slowly, agonizingly, he lowered the weapon. As they cuffed him and dragged him out, he stopped in front of Camilla. This isn't over, he spat. My lawyers will have this tape inadmissible in an hour. It's not just a tape, Sebastian, Camilla said, standing up and smoothing her blazer. I sent the physical files from the archive to the Attorney General this morning. The tape is just for the fans. She watched as they hauled him away. The adrenaline that had sustained her for a week finally rushed out of her system. She sat down heavily in her chair. Armand rushed in a moment later. Are you all right? We saw the feed. It was Terrifying. It's done, Camilla said quietly. It's finally done. 6 months later, the grand ballroom of the Pierre Hotel was full again. But this time, the atmosphere was different. There was no tension, no whispered gossip, only respect. Camilla Pembroke stood at the podium. She wore a white suit, sharp and modern. She looked nothing like the governess of the past. She looked like a queen. "Ladies and gentlemen," she spoke, her voice ringing clear, "this year has been one of transformation. Pembroke Logistics has not only recovered, we have evolved. The Mercury drone fleet is now active in 50 cities, delivering medical supplies to hard-to-reach areas. We have turned a profit for the second consecutive quarter." Applause thundered, genuine applause. "But more importantly," Camilla continued, "we have cleaned house. We have established the Flight 404 scholarship for the children of pilots lost in service. We have instituted transparency protocols that are now the industry standard." She looked out at the crowd. She saw Armand, smiling like a proud father. She saw Sarah Mitchell, the new VP of Technology. She saw Henderson, head of global security. She didn't see Garrett. Garrett Pembroke was currently serving the first year of a 15-year sentence in a minimum security facility in upstate New York. He had taken the plea deal, testifying against Cross in exchange for leniency. He spent his days in the prison library, reading about the success of the company he used to own. And Sebastian Cross, he was awaiting trial in solitary confinement, his assets seized, his reputation incinerated. The man who thought he was untouchable had learned that even kings bleed. Camilla raised her glass. "To the future," she said, "and to knowing your worth." As the crowd cheered, Camilla walked off the stage. She didn't stop to mingle. She walked out to the balcony, looking over the city lights. She took a deep breath of the cold night air. She had walked through the fire and come out forged in steel. She wasn't just Camilla Pembroke anymore. She was the architect of her own destiny. She took her phone out and dialed a number. "Hello?" a voice answered. It was Vanessa Leclerc. She was working as a waitress in a diner in New Jersey, the only job she could get. "Vanessa," Camilla said. "It's Camilla." There was a long silence. "What do you want?" "To gloat." "No," Camilla said. "I'm calling to tell you that I've released the lien on your apartment. You can sell it and keep the equity. Use it to go back to school, get a degree, do something real." Vanessa sounded stunned. "Why? After everything I did?" "Because," Camilla said, looking up at the moon, "my success is the best revenge. I don't need your suffering to feel complete." "Good luck, Vanessa." She hung up and dropped the phone into her purse. She turned back to the party, a smile on her face, a real smile. The music swelled, the city shined, and Camilla Pembroke stepped back into the light. Camilla Pembroke didn't just survive the divorce, she rewrote the rules of the game. She proved that true power isn't about how loud you shout, but about what you build when everyone expects you to break. From a silenced wife to a titan of industry, her journey is a lesson to us all. Never underestimate the quiet ones. They are the ones watching, learning, and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. What a ride. I hope you enjoyed this story of betrayal, justice, and absolute domination. If you loved seeing Camilla take down the villains and reclaim her life, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And if you want more stories like this, don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss an upload. What would you have done in Camilla's shoes? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching and see you in the next story.